All right, so today we're going to teach you how to study your finished piece of work and imagine the strategies that the writers used. And then you're going to be able to work on trying those strategies with your own work a little bit later. All right, so we're going to start off the year by studying a personal narrative that a middle school student has written. We're going to see if we can figure out what the recipe they had for writing this piece of writing, and what steps the writer seems to have taken so that we can make our writing as equally as powerful. So whenever we're trying to learn from a piece of writing, first we just read the writing like it's a book in the library, enjoying it. And then after we read a section, we think, what did this writer do that worked? So we're going to read our first piece of writing, which is linked into your Canvas lesson, for Allie's personal narrative. And after the first part, we're going to pause and think, what actually works in this writing? What did she do that was good? So we're going to start off by looking at our story. Now it's small, but to view this, we can simply increase it and zoom it in as much as you need to. Sometimes that works a little bit better. So we're going to start off reading, and we're going to read just a little bit, and then we'll stop and go back and look what Allie did. So it starts off with, I shivered a little bit. It's pretty cold, I said as I dipped my toes in the water. I took a pebble and threw it far into the creek. Well, whatever, I said as I plunged into the cold water. It felt amazing. The cold water covered my eyes like a gentle blanket, and the water washed over me like a breeze. Swimming is my favorite. Okay, so we're going to look at this and say, what has she done in this? So we'll start at the top and see what we noticed. I'm going to add a text box, and you're going to annotate yours as we read as well. I shivered a little bit. Now that's a lead into a story, right? It's the beginning of the story. So what did she do here that was so good? So she started off by, instead of saying, we went down to the creek. That would have been boring. Instead, I shivered a little bit. So by doing this, she makes you feel what she's feeling, right? So she had a very good lead of her story, and it made we felt what she felt. So why is she shivering? Most likely people shiver because she's cold or the water's cold. Okay, and she did tell you that in the next part right here. It's pretty cold. Well, what is she doing here? She's actually telling you the words that she's saying. Okay, so this is called dialogue, when they use quotation marks around actual words that they use. So we see dialogue. And she said it, I said, as I dipped my toes in the water. I took a pebble and threw it into the creek. I think right here she's being very detailed, right? She's telling us exactly what she's doing. She didn't just say, I went down to the creek. Some more dialogue here. Well, whatever. See the exclamation point? Definitely shows emotion and shows excitement. I said as I plunged into the cold water, it felt amazing. The water covered my eyes like a gentle blanket, and the water washed over me like a breeze. Swimming is my favorite. Let's look at that. Guys, I like these words. Right here, covered my eyes like a gentle blanket. She's using figurative language. That's a simile. Figurative language helps us to understand what's going on. It gives it a little bit more excitement. All right. And once again, she used another simile right over here. The water washed over me like a breeze. So it's another piece of figurative language. Swimming is my favorite. Okay. Now, as we go on, we're going to read the rest of this now. But before we do that, we're going to look at some strategies that authors use to write powerful personal narratives. So we're going to look for these strategies in Allie's writing today. First, think of a person, place, or moment in your life that matters and write a story about it. So it should be about a moment in your life, person, a place. Okay? So focus on one episode and write with detail. Don't summarize a big stretch of time. Help readers picture the episode, a small action, and exact dialogue. We definitely said she's already done that. Climb inside the moment and write within the narrator's point of view. So only what the narrator or Allie is seeing or hearing or feeling, not other characters. Make characters say the words and use the tone that shows their personality. So we saw that when she used her exclamation point, when she showed emotion, that was showing us some of her personality. You explain why the characters are acting the way they do. You zoom in on the small but powerful details that really capture the big moments. All right. When you write by saying, what are my strengths? What are my needs? Craft a memorable lead. We did talk about that already with Allie. She had a really good lead. It wasn't as simply as, one day we went down to the creek. They asked themselves, what's their story really about? And they include descriptive words, dialogue, inner thinking. They include things that they are thinking in their mind as it's happening. They elaborate on important scenes that show what the story is really about. All right. You include the new scenes, which are remembered things from the past or things that you imagined in the future. And importantly, craft an ending that delivers a powerful message. So you have to have a really good ending. So we're going to come back to her story and we're going to finish reading. We're going to see what else we see that Allie's done well. Wait up, yelled Emma as she ran down the hill with her floaty wrapped around her waist. Her curly brown hair whipped around in the breeze. I shivered. I was cold already. A moment after that, India's mom waded in laughing. So she's definitely looking at, we have different characters, right? And so we have more dialogue. So our characters are speaking, right? Not just Allie. But here's where they focused in on that detail. A lot of detail. She could have said that Emma ran to the water, but instead she said she had her floaty wrapped around her waist and curly brown hair whipped around in the breeze. That's all that extra detail that was added, right? Lots of details. All right. Here she showed India's mom was laughing. All right. That shows emotions, right? Shows emotions and it shows what the characters are thinking. Okay, I'll make this box a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's not going to let me go too far. Okay. Then it goes, "Ha, it's cold," she said. Then she stopped. "Girls, out of the water." Notice the exclamation marks. Lots of emotion, right? So we can come in here and say lots of emotions. She means it. She's yelling. She has exclamation points. She pushed us back to shore. I looked back and saw a long, thin water snake slithering toward us. I gasped. I quickly swam underwater. Don't say with that. Wide strokes. I never saw any water snakes around. Something, eek, I thought. All right. What else has she done here? We need to think to ourselves. She is focusing on that one moment in time. That one trip to the creek. She didn't start off by telling us what happened when she went to breakfast that day or what happened on the ride over to the creek. She's simply telling the story of what happened at the creek, right? So it's one moment in time. So we're going to move back over here. Went over that. So today in your work for today, you're going to be reading out of a realistic fiction book. All right, you need to find a realistic fiction book by typing into search in either the Epic North Carolina Kids Digital Library or a realistic fiction book of your own. A realistic fiction book is a piece of writing where things could really happen in the book. There's no fantasy, there's no magic, there's no talking animals. These are things that could be true, not necessarily are true, but things that could happen in real life. All right. Then your assignment will ask you to read out that book for time period and to write a text entry showing that you understand some of the strategies that we talked about today that we have listed down here.